All right, we're officially live. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another monthly marketing meetup. We discuss all things. I'm your host, Fallah. I'm the CEO of VBOUT, and today we're diving deep into a topic that sits at the core of every unforgettable brand: how to move from just being seen to truly being remembered. The episode is called From Positioning to Persona, Building Brands That Stick. And we're not keeping it surface level today. We're getting into the real strategy behind what makes a brand resonate, internally with your team and externally with your audience. Joining me today is someone who's not just talking about brand strategy, he's actually living it. Mark Evans is the head of brand and content at new.io. Hopefully, I said that correct.
You did?
He brings years of experience helping companies not only define their positioning, but bring it to life across content, messaging, and platforms like LinkedIn. He's an extremely sharp thinker, a creative mind, and someone I personally enjoy following. So whether you're building your startup, scaling your marketing team, or just being tired of blending in, this episode is actually for you. Mark, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for asking me. Appreciate it.
I just want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor before we dive into the topic, VBOUT. VBOUT is our brainchild for 10 years. Basically, if you are looking to run your email marketing campaigns, you're looking to build either simple or complex marketing automation sequences for your business, follow ups, onboarding, and so on, or build multi channel AI chatbots. We've created over 14 tools working together to help you achieve your entire marketing strategy from lead capture, lead nurture, and retention. What sets VBOT apart is we made the stack very simple. You can learn it in a very short period of time. We provide it to you at a great price, and it comes with an awesome support that's top in the industry. So if you're looking to adopt a marketing platform, just reach out to us and we will set you up with a success manager who can tell you if the product is the right fit. On the other side of things, as I mentioned earlier, all this stuff will be recorded and shared afterwards with you. Just so you don't miss any of these notifications, any of the follow ups, George, who's with me today, is going to be dropping the links in the chat for our Facebook group. Everything we do gets published there, all the notification events and recording as well. So please join us, and we'd love to stay in touch on that side. All right, Mark, again, thank you for joining. I know it's summer, it's hot, and the topic today brings us to grassroots, all things branding. Let's start from the beginning, Mark. Let's talk about brand positioning. We think we know what brand positioning is. Everybody who is joining us today or who will watch this later actually have done some sort of branding. But I want to take your sort of take on it. What is brand positioning?
That's a straightforward but a complex question. But in simple terms, it really defines what you do, who you serve, the the value or benefits that you deliver, and how you're different or unique from all the other competitors out there. And let's be honest here, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of companies that walk and talk just like you, same features, same benefits, same prices. So brand positioning is how you outflank the competition, even in a very small way. I think one of the fallacies of brand positioning is you have to be dramatically different or dramatically better. But in many situations, it's a matter of just being different enough so that you can stand out from the crowd in some way. And brand positioning is at the core, I believe, of everything that a company does from a sales and marketing perspective.
Usually it trickles down from the founders in terms of personality. And I always talk about this with our clients is they talk about brand positioning and their messaging and the entire kind of marketing stack. How do you see this kind of from top down in terms of, let's say we're starting from scratch with a brand in the B2B space, right? We're building a SaaS product. How do you envision kind of the founders setting the brand positioning from top bottom?
Well, sometimes founders have can clearly articulate what a company does and why it matters. They have a passion for it. They understand the marketplace. They understand the customers and their pains, and they have no problem being very clear about what the company does and why it matters. But in many situations, especially in B2B SaaS, where founders are often technical people, engineers, they're very product focused as opposed
Mhm.
to customer focused. And they don't see the big picture. They see the world in terms of features and how the platform can become even more powerful and robust. But they miss out on the story. And it's a story that needs to resonate with prospects and what their needs are and their interests and their goals. And so sometimes there's just the disconnect. And it's not that a founder isn't smart or they just don't know what they're doing. It's just that maybe their skill sets are different from what needs to happen in terms of telling us a company story very clearly and effectively.
So do you think that a technical founder is and by the way, we're guilty of all this that you're saying. I'm half technical, half business. And when we started VBOUT initially, I was just totally focused on we got the best features. We do email, we do this, we do social. And my messaging was just like people didn't care about this, right? Do you think technical founders should rely on marketing people like yourself to create a better brand positioning by not focusing on features, but more of benefits?
Um, I think that the best brand positioning comes from having lots of people at the table. It's not just marketing because they have a very siloed or skewed view of the world, but it has to be sales, customer service, engineering, and as important, customers and prospects. So when
Hmm.
you get all those views, then you can start to explore the different themes and distill down what the strategic narrative is. And so
Hmm.
the best positioning comes from different perspectives. And I think one of the mistakes that companies make is that they just assume that their positioning is good enough, or they get the marketing department to develop some brand positioning and come back to us in a week. And often there are gaps in their story.
Hmm.
And you can tell the gaps when you go to a website and the story isn't clear, it's not totally obvious what a company does and who it serves. And in many cases, they just haven't spent enough time and energy to develop brand positioning that's going to resonate. So it's a really hard exercise. It's not something you can do overnight. And but I think a lot of companies underestimate the value of brand positioning, and as a result, they go to market, sales and marketing, um, arguably with one hand tied behind their back.
Hmm. And I actually see this a lot, the silos between departments and the actual vision top down. And I envision brand positioning as this like spine with hangers on it. So you got to hang the top, all the C-level kind of mission. What are they trying to solve? Then you're hanging the marketing messages on the same spine. Then the sales, then come even the support, which plays a big role in it. They all got to be aligned on that same spine across the entire department. And I do see it a lot where there's just simply a misalignment in terms of like the top vision, the middle execution, and the final results and stories told by customers. Um, and we talked about this briefly when we did the pre-call kind of screening. You mentioned internal versus external execution on your
Mhm.
brand. So help me a little bit, kind of how do you look at this? What is internal and external execution?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think that's an important differentiation when it comes to brand positioning. So there are two sides of the equation. On one side, brand positioning is about creating an internal blueprint, and then making sure that people read off the same page. So your messaging is clear, coherent, and consistent. So everybody from the CEO to the person to your admin staff to customer service to people that, may do physical jobs, if they are asked what a company does and who it serves, the answer is all the same. There's no variations on the truth. You're getting in trouble
Yeah.
when you ask the marketing person what a company does and they say X, and you ask the salesperson and they say Y, and the stories are not aligned.
Yeah.
And people make them up. So one of the most important things as a part of a brand positioning exercise is that you make sure that A, you have lots of people at the table, including customers, and that B, people, when the positioning starts to sort of come to life, people can rally around it. Because
Mhm.
if they don't believe it, if they don't see it as something that resonates with them, then they won't use it.
Mhm.
And I've come into lots of situations with CEOs or heads of marketing where you do a brand positioning exercise and it's clear that the CEO isn't into it, isn't excited about it, or isn't enthusiastic, and then you've got a problem. And part of the the mistake is they're not engaged enough. They
Mhm.
expect somebody else to create brand positioning for them,
Mhm.
but when you have the vision for the company, when you're in charge of the mission and the path forward, then you have to believe in brand positioning. And my take is you have to be involved. You have to invest your time, you have to invest your energy. And at the end of the day, if you believe it as a CEO, and you're waving the flag, in a sense, you become the head cheerleader for brand positioning, and the rest of the company will follow along. So that's the internal side of brand positioning. And once you've got that down, then you've got a really solid foundation. Now, externally, that's when things get really interesting because what you want to do is you want to go to market with a very clear and consistent and impactful story. So, how do you do that? Well, for many companies, it starts with their website. So the messaging on the website is really, really clear. So if you visit the website, the homepage, know within seconds what a company does and whether they're relevant to you. There's a study that says that people decide in 5 seconds or less whether a company matters. And if they don't get it right away, they'll click away. So that's the importance of messaging. So it's in your website. It also comes down to content marketing. So all the content you're producing is around certain themes and builds on the strategic narrative, the customers that you're after, the problems that you're solving, the goals that you're trying to help people achieve, and then that extends to things like social media, going to conferences. When you're talking to people and you're trying to engage in conversations and lead nurturing. So everything you might do from a sales and marketing and even a customer success perspective all stems from strong brand position and really having a sense of knowing who you are and why you matter and why other people should matter too.
Have you seen before, Mark, where you do the internal exercise, you align everybody from top down, and everybody can say what you guys do and why you're doing it. And then you do your launch and your market kind of assessment, and you realize that the brand that people perceive externally is completely disconnected from your doing internally. Have you seen that before?
All the time, all the time, because one of the one of the challenges with many companies is they have a very biased view of the world. They have blinders on. So they believe that their product is positioned in such a way. And if you're not talking to prospects enough, if you're not talking to customers and truly listening to what they want and how they see you and competitors, then you've got an information gap. And
Yeah.
that happens all the time because companies believe what they believe. And sometimes change is really hard. And I've been in brand positioning exercises where I've talked to customers and prospects and done research, and I've come back and said, "This is your brand positioning. This is the way that, from what I can tell, and having done this lots and lots of times, this is how you're going to go to market." And they go, "No, that's not us." And then you have a problem because then either you have to reload or you have to convince them that you're right and they're wrong. Or the other mistake they make is that you do all your work and all the grunt work behind the scenes. You come to market, they say, okay, that's great, we believe in it, but then they never use it
Mhm.
because too many brand positioning engagements end up with really nice documents that sit on a Google Drive or a Dropbox and never see the light of day.
Mm.
because it's hard to take the leap from actually developing positioning to actually making it come to life in the real world. And that's a long process, and you really have to be committed to make it happen. So yeah, there's lots of bumps in the road when it comes to brand positioning, and then when it works, it's amazing, and it makes
Mm.
a huge impact. But sometimes it's a struggle. Sometimes, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and it's hard sometimes to reconcile between what the founders and the founding team overall had set out to do and what people are perceiving it. And a lot of times they're just stubborn. They don't want to change their branding. They don't want to change their positioning, and they're set out to do this. Um, but then the feedback and how people are using the product and how they're perceiving it is different. So I think reconciling those two must be a hard task for somebody who's expert in branding. Um,
Yeah, it's a challenge because I'm biased in my own view of the world and my own skills, and believe that when I do all the work, then there's something there
yeah,
that in many cases, I do a pretty good job of developing brand positioning, but you come into situations where some maybe they see it as sort of they're going through the motions as opposed to truly believing that they need to reposition themselves. And that's just the way of business. You have people who want to change and people who think they want to change but they don't really. And often that's a battle. And the other thing about brand position, I often believe that it really happens, the magic happens when you get a third party perspective. So you can do it internally. You can hire your marketing team you can mandate your marketing team to do it, but they're heads down 24/7. They're drinking the Kool-Aid. So sometimes they just can't take a step back. But the challenge with a third party is that they're on the outside looking in. And because they're not part of the team, sometimes there's a trust factor, or they just don't believe that a third party can do the job. And it's hard. But when it works, when you get a company that nails their brand positioning, and it's magical, it's amazing.
I say maybe you got to start backwards. You got to start with the customer stories, with the feedback on the outside, and then come back and retweak your vision on the inside. That could be a strategy. And in terms of fundamentals, and I know you've done this and you've been in the trenches and you've built brands. So what are the fundamentals? How do you actually make it happen?
Well, there's multiple parts, but obviously there's the internal part of it where you're talking to people internally who have domain expertise that obviously you don't have. So as I said earlier, it's from up and down the organization, from the C-suite, sales, customer success, customer service, product development. I mean, you're looking for lots of different views and and lots of different perspectives. And then you've got kind of the competitive research where, and this is the important part of brand positioning, is that you need to understand how big competitors, emerging competitors position themselves. And what do they rally around? What's their story? What's their strength? Because the last thing you want to do is come up with a great story, but your biggest competitor, that's their story already, and it looks like you're mirroring them, right? Which does
Mm,
happen.
mm.
And then the other part is just, as I said, talking to customers and prospects. And you're bang on when you say that that's probably where you start because they will tell you authentically and honest to what their problems are, their pains, the tools that they use right now, the aspirations that they have, and what they're looking for. Like what would resonate with them.
Mm.
And you'll get invaluable perspectives. And sometimes it's hard to believe what they're saying because it's often counter to what you think. Like I've been in lots of situations where the CEO will say, "Go talk to our customers." I'll come back and say, "Well, they said this," and the guy said, "I don't believe you," or they'll be surprised or even shocked, right? So it's internal, it's it's customer slash prospects, and external. Those are the three pillars that you want to dive into.
I'm a big believer of stories by the actual customers. Like interviewing 10 customers, and I told this several companies who I advise on their board, like spend $1,000, $100 gift cards to speak to 10 of your closest customers for 30 minutes. Just hard-on conversation, what they like, what they hate about your product. We've done this ourselves as well with a lot of our clients. What were measures of success? How do they perceive you? How is support treating them? Like have a human conversation with them. And literally that 30 minutes of transcript with AI and everything that you can do can give you a lot of gold nuggets on how you can reposition your messaging on the website, even your internal kind of conversations and dialogue with your team in terms like, hey, the support team is doing a great job, or maybe they should tweak in a little bit on that side because they feel a little bit left out and they're not getting the support they need or whatever it may be. So those 10 stories, and 10 is just because it happens to be doable by everybody, can really align the external and the internal, in my opinion, when it comes to brand positioning.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about talking to customers is it just shouldn't happen during a brand position exercise. You should be talking to your customers all the time because the market shifts. Customers, their budget shift, their goals shift. So it should be a an
Sure.
ongoing process. And the other thing, brand position is very fluid. It's
Hmm.
not, create it once and then you can use it for the next 5 years. It changes because the economy changes, the competitive landscape changes. One of the tools that I use when it comes to brand positioning is the jobs to be done framework. And
Okay.
it really helps you put yourself in the shoes of your customers and understanding how they do their jobs, the tools that they use, the frustrations that they experience. And as important, and this is really what you want to get at, is what would make them change? What's a story or a narrative that would make them at least start to explore the notion of switching horses in midstream?
Hmm.
Because change is hard. And to get
Nobody likes
somebody,
to do no, nobody likes drastic
nobody likes
change.
change, right? And nobody likes to switch products unless they really, really have to, or unless there's a story that's so interesting or compelling that they can't ignore it.
Hmm.
So it's a combination of curiosity, or it could be fear of missing out. You think about some of the really cool AI products these days, and the branding that some of them have done that make jobs look so much easier than they're doing right now. And so they have positioning that generates FOMO. And so if you can get somebody to even consider changing, then that's a huge win as far as brand positioning is concerned.
So is that a framework that people can download and a worksheet that they could follow? It's called the fundamentals. Can you please repeat?
Absolutely. So, yeah, it's very well known. It's called Jobs to be Done,
Okay.
and it's a
Is there a
framework.
downloadable for that, Mark, that
If
people can get there?
Yeah, if you just did a search for jobs to be done template on Google, there's lots of me out there, and there are worksheets that you can use, and it's
Okay.
really great. I mean, once you fill out the worksheet, then it's almost enlightening because you go, oh, okay, almost see you see your world in it from a sort of a new perspective, right?
Mhm.
Because then you are putting yourself in your customer's shoes, and then when
George,
you
can you
talk.
can you look that up and maybe provide a link in the chat for everybody who's with us today?
Sure, I will.
Jobs to be done framework. If you find anything, just drop it in the chat for everyone. I think worksheets can be also a great starting point for founders because we've done worksheets after we started VBOUT 10 years ago, and I attended all these events. Some of them were like hardcore 4 month, 4 week boot camp. And then we went to this like 3 days in San Francisco where we did all these kind of canvases and things. And you come out with a slightly different perspective, a little bit overworked, a little bit kind of unnecessary in some cases, but I think worksheets can put in one canvas, one paper, and I think everybody should define the brand positioning document, one word document, one page presentation, one piece of paper. It's just not no longer than that. That's what I've distilled my 10 years experience building Viva to.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, one of the interesting things about brand positioning is that it doesn't have to be a 50, 100-page document,
exactly.
that has everything to the nth degree. In many cases, it can be a 4 to 5 page document that says, this is a brand positioning statement. These are our value propositions. This is a matrix of how we compare to the competition. This is our mission. And one of the pushbacks that I often get from clients is that's it. You
Mhm.
know, And the analogy that I use is brand positioning is like looking at a duck on the water. So
Mhm.
above the water, the duck is floating around and it's really calm and cool and collected. But under the water, its feet are moving in a really furious fashion, right? And
Yeah.
that's brand positioning because above the water it looks really simple. Below the water, there's so much work that goes into it to really get those different perspectives.
Yeah.
But the end result, looks simple, but it's not. It can be very, very powerful.
And I remember this one very good branding person we worked with 6 years ago. They just created a triangle. They said, put in this circle at the top of the triangle what you think your brand positioning is. We're gonna take your direct competitors and we're gonna distill their brand positioning here. And then from the interviews you've done with your customers, this is what they think your brand positioning is. And then with that triangle, like in the center, they sort of reconciled. They made us reconcile what we really do, which basically we help small marketing teams. We bring like the marketing tools of the big guys to the small teams, and we support it with world-class support. Like that's very simple branding, and we built up on that. That's why a lot of our reviews, for instance, everybody talks about support because we shower people with amazing support, and they do not forget that experience. Um, Very simple. Now, you did touch up on AI, and that's a topic that is inevitable in every single one of these things that we do. How do you think AI has reshaped, I would say, branding for companies? Because you talked about the four-page document, and I agree. I guarantee you, everybody who's watching this probably think about is Mark's kind of ideas. And we're going to spit into ChatGPT and we're going to come up with this four-page document. So let's talk a little bit about how you think AI is reshaping that process.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, I think from a technical perspective, ChatGPT is an amazing tool, or Perplexity, or
Gemini.
Gemini, whatever you want to use. It's an amazing tool to generate ideas and to get information fast. Um, but I think that tools have to be combined with, I think robots and humans, at least that's my view of the world, need to work together. I think it's a win-win when they both work together. So yeah, you can use ChatGPT to develop brand positioning. What's my brand position for my company? But ChatGPT doesn't talk to your customers or your prospects.
Right.
It's not in the field. It doesn't go to conferences. It's not fielding customer success calls or customer service calls. So there's lots of things that ChatGPT doesn't know, that AI doesn't know. But it's an amazing tool to get you started. And once you have all those inputs, from customers and
Yeah.
from competitive research, you can feed it into ChatGPT, and then you can feed it into templates,
But you have to
and
get
it
it first.
you have to get it first, but it can accelerate the process. It can it can make the brand positioning process that much faster because hey, we live in a world that's super competitive and moves faster than ever. And sometimes you can't wait, 2 months, 3 months to develop brand positioning. You gotta pivot quickly, or you gotta change quickly. So yeah, I'm a big believer in the tools. Um, on a related note, I will say that, right now, a lot of companies are riding high because they're positioning themselves as AI powered or an AI platform. That will disappear soon because I think every B2B SaaS company will have AI integrated into it. And then AI won't be that sexy beast that everybody's rallying around right now. But we probably have a little bit of runway left before that stops.
But how much noise is it creating? I mean, if I feel just like you come up with so many brands nowadays. Let's talk about SaaS products. That's partially like an area of your expertise. They come out every day and their messaging seems very solid, right? Most likely it's AI generated most of the time.
Yeah.
How do you differentiate through this noise as a brand?
That's a really good question. So you can have a differentiated message. You can figure out how you're unique in some way. That is one half of the equation. Then you got to figure out how to tell your story. So it's let's just put it this way. It's relatively easy to come up with your story and with your brand positioning because I mean, if you do enough research, you can do that. But how do you get the world to pay attention? And how do you cut through the noise?
Exactly.
And that's the not only a brand positioning challenge, it's a marketing challenge
Mhm.
because there's so much noise and there's so much content and there's so much competition right now that the 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 biggest challenge for customers is getting people to pay attention. And then lots of people say we live in an attention economy
Mhm.
right now. So that comes down to, in many respects, knowing your audiences inside out, understanding, where they are, the things that they want and need to know, and then serving their interests as opposed to trying to serve your own. So for many companies, it's LinkedIn because that's where they learn and get information. For some companies, it's Facebook or Reddit or YouTube, or it could be old school, like going to conferences or direct mail or television advertising. But more than ever, I think you really need your customers inside out.
Mhm.
It's not enough to say, well, it's our target audience is everybody, or our target audiences are women between the ages of 30 and 50, because that's not good enough anymore. Which is why, we continually need to be talking to customers. And it's funny because conferences had their heyday, and then, after COVID, they died, and it took a while for them to come back. But B2B SaaS is conferences are a lot where the conversations happen,
Yep.
where the interactions happen, where you really talk to a lot of people at scale, as much as we can scale as humans, and you come back with not only leads but intelligence. And that's why I think conferences will continue to be a very valuable tool for many companies.
I have a friend of mine who helped the company scale so fast in 3 years and sell for 240 mil. They built their entire customer pipeline from conferences. So we go to conferences, just talk to people. He'd not even have a booth. He'll come up to somebody and say, "So what is what do you have you used this before?" "Oh no, we haven't." "Oh, I think you should check it out. It can save you so much on your Amazon resale. Let me take your information." And that's it. He takes the lead. He sends them an email follow-up. He sets up an appointment and he closes most of them because they know who he is and it's something that they needed. So I am a big believer with you in some industries, those conferences can bring in a lot of initial kind of momentum and clients to you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, on a sort of a related note, I mean, I think one of the things that I fundamentally believe in is a walk before you run approach to marketing, because I think a lot of companies think they need to be all things to all people everywhere, and so they spread themselves out really thin.
yeah,
Content,
guilty.
social, yeah, exactly. But what you really need to focus on, it's almost like the 80/20 rule, is that 80% of your business will come from 20% of your marketing activity, and that you need to identify the channels that work really well for you and then double down on them, as opposed to we need to be on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram
But
and
it's hard
and
to find
YouTube.
that channel, Mark. A lot of companies just struggle.
Yeah.
They don't know where to start. They don't know how to do it, and they can't find it. They often come to us and like, I tried everything, Rich. Like, what channel should I go to? I don't have the answer.
Yeah, well,
Um,
sometimes it's not the channel, it's the execution, right? The channel's right, the execution's wrong because they just haven't taken the right tactical approach to not only sort of trying to wave the flag for their product, but trying to connect with their customers and trying to
mhm,
come across as a trusted resource. And that's
right.
half the battle these days, is to be trusted and to be seen as a go-to resource. And you look at companies like Shopify or Gong or Chili Piper or HubSpot, and they're all in the education business.
Yeah.
They're all educating their prospects and people who will never be their customers, but will spread the word about how to do marketing better. And that's a huge part of marketing these days.
I agree. And I know we got a 16 participants. If any of you is really having some branding, positioning kind of conversations, they're working with clients. I know a lot of people use on the agency side as well, use VBOUT. Let us know. Drop us in the chat your question. I know Mark is fantastic. So we're gonna get to the questions round up at the end. Feel free to ask as we go through this now. Um, Now let's in terms of like what stands out with when using AI, right? And um, is it just the messaging using AI that you can put out to help you with your branding, or is it saying that you have expertise in AI, or like you said, AI powered, AI enabled. And I think we're coming to a point where you're niching down on knowing how to use the term AI, right? So, how do you stand out when it comes to adopting AI into your strategy
In terms of from a marketing perspective,
from brand positioning? And I can repeat the
yeah,
question.
yeah. I mean, I
Mhm.
think that,
Yeah.
I mean, let's be clear. AI is a tool. It's a very powerful tool, and which is why everyone's so excited about these tools because you think about it, the efficiency, the productivity, the ability to scale, produce content, for example, that we would never imagine the volume before is irresistible, and every marketer has to be using AI because if you're not, then you're basically it's like reading the encyclopedia when everyone uses the internet. I mean, it's right in front of us, and you'd be a fool not to use it and take advantage of it. Now, the question is, it does not replace. It cannot be sort of a total replacement. It can eliminate a lot of grunt work, a lot of sort of manual labor. You still have to be creative. You still have to be strategic. You still have to know your audiences and do content and do marketing that matters. And that comes from market research, from intelligence, from talking to customers. And then from a positioning point of view, I mean, you know, AI is you know, give it a year, and then you'll probably stop seeing it on websites because everybody's going to be doing it, right?
It's gonna
And we're
be
all,
like mobile responsive.
yeah, yeah, exactly, right? I mean, think of all the major themes in the past everybody rallied around. And you remember, I don't know, remember Web 2.0 was a big thing because when the web became more than e-commerce,
Yeah.
and that disappeared pretty quickly. So, yeah, it's impacting everything. I mean, not just marketing, but it's you just have to ride the wave and see if you can leverage it as much as possible.
Yeah, and the reason I asked this question, Mark, is because I've seen companies just change their entire kind of brand to say, we're an AI first agency. We are an AI email marketing company. We provide AI consulting. When before their entire brand positioning was the same thing without AI. So that's
Yeah.
why I asked this question, to see if that makes a difference, or do you think more business will be captured by companies who are AI first in their brand messaging?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a really good question, and I think right now is that um, customers and prospects are fascinated with AI, and people believe that they need to embrace AI tools, or otherwise they'll be left behind. And so there is a serious case of FOMO right now, and that everybody wants to be seen as being innovative and forward thinking, which is why companies use AI in their brand positioning and their messaging because they want to. If you don't use it, then you may not be seen as a legitimate player anymore.
Right.
And you think about a company like Intercom, for example, that's raised, I don't know, $100 million in venture capital, super successful platform. But if you go to their website, they totally changed their messaging to be AI powered, CRM or whatever the platform is. And it was like, it's just so, for me, it was just so shocking because it feels cheap to me. It feels like they're
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
they're just slapping on AI so that they can be seen as part of the crowd. But what that may reflect is the fact that all their competitors have rallied around AI and they feel that they don't have a choice. Like, if you're going to play the game, then you have to have the right tools.
Correct.
Um, and so I think a lot of companies, consumers they want to use AI tools, and as a result, companies need to position themselves as AI powered tools. It's just for now, it's this the rules of engagement.
So, guys, if you're thinking how to put AI in your branding and positioning, just think about it like Mark said. It's just a FOMO thing. Have the conversation with your customers without necessarily changing your entire branding and messaging. Because I think, Mark, ChatGPT, Gemini have done a great job in making everybody think that AI is out to get our jobs. Like everybody's just talking about it. Am I going to lose my job because of AI? Like, how is it replacing the? And while there's truth to it, I think the branding itself is is just genius because it makes everybody want to learn it. But that's a different story.
Yeah, the reality is that AI will eliminate jobs, certain jobs. I mean, think of the things that we do with AI right now that like, writing headlines or email copy or subject lines or advertising copy. Like all that, all the things that you can probably do really quickly and efficiently with AI, and all those jobs will disappear. And but other jobs will emerge, other new types of jobs that require different skills will emerge. But when you have the CEO of Perplexity comes out and says that 50% of white collar jobs will disappear, that's a bit shocking. People hear a comment like that, and they're scared. But I don't think, I mean, who knows what's over the horizon? But the world evolves, and we'll see what happens. But I can't look into a crystal ball and tell you what's going to happen. But it is clear that AI is having a huge impact, and the way the models are improving is unbelievable. Like compared to like think about when ChatGPT came out, in November 2023, was it 2022, 2023, and where we're at now, like it's night and day.
Yeah. Yeah, and I I mean a lot of employers are saying you need to know AI for you to get hired. So the only thing you can do is stay informed. That's
Yeah,
it.
yeah. I mean, my kids, I basically tell them like you have to know, for example, how to use ChatGPT inside out. You have to become a master. It's like in the old days when, oh, I know how to use, PowerPoint and Excel and Word and that, the Microsoft Suite, and that was seen as sort of a check mark on your resume. Now it's got to be, I know ChatGPT, I know how to create GPTs, I know how the different models work. I mean, it's just like table stakes right now for anybody, whether you're junior or whether you're senior. I mean, everybody's got to learn. You have to learn.
The good thing though, Mark, is I think there are about 10 tools that are like AI at core that if somebody doesn't know anything about AI and they know how to use those 10 tools, they're gonna be okay. It's not an infinite amount of things that you need to learn in AI. It's still very primitive. 99% of people, they know how to use it for asking questions and getting answers. They might know how to design or create some video in AI, but the majority of them share very basic common knowledge of how to ask a question and get an answer. Like it's not this secret society of like people who are so proficient at AI that the rest are missing out is actually very basic understanding of it. It's
Yep. It's interesting, just on a related note, is in the chat, Daniel talked about selling the solution as opposed to selling AI. And you think about like my two favorite tools right now, um, are Descript and Grammarly. So
mhm.
Descript is a
Love this
tool
script. Yeah,
that allows you to edit video using like copy. You can look at copy and you can eliminate words or whatever.
yeah,
And then Grammarly is basically a grammar tool. Like it's an amazing grammar tool.
yeah.
They're both AI powered, but if you looked at their marketing, you would never know that
Hmm.
because they're focused on this is the value that we provide. This is what we do. This is the value that we provide, and this is why we should be a fundamental part of your toolbox. And AI for them is just the underpinning technology. And
100%.
and lots of companies will eventually embrace the same approach, and it'll happen soon, right? Because it's really about, does this tool do the job that I need it to do, and does it provide, make me faster, better, richer, whatever you want, right? It's all about the value of a tool. It's not about the technology, really.
We edit video. We help you edit videos through text. That's the
That
script main vision. We
yeah,
have the Underlord, which is the AI product that helps you replace your voice and your kind of filler words and stuff and some other things for AI images and things. But yeah, you don't go there because it's AI. You go there because it's still an easy way to edit video.
yeah,
Grammarly, the same things. It helps you avoid mistakes and write better sentences. At the back end of it, there's AI. So I agree with you. Tools are gonna still become tools again,
yep,
but when people use them, they're gonna expect AI to be somewhere in there.
yep. Yeah, for sure. Because AI is going to make every tool more faster, better, more efficient, and companies won't have a choice, right? They have to use it.
Let's talk about strategic planning and understanding your ICP. We talk a lot about understanding your ICP because this is 99% of the problem when it comes to new businesses launching. They can't get traction because they don't understand who they're selling to. So why is it important, do you think, to understand who your buyer persona is and your ICP?
Too much competition. People don't pay attention. They're, it's really hard to capture the spotlight. So if you're not completely in tune with your buyer's expectations, their goals, their pains, and their problems, then you're
That's it.
operating.
You
That's
said
it.
it.
Yeah. So,
P-
you have,
Problems and things they want to solve. That's where most of the ICP revolve around, I feel, right?
yeah, and I think it's about what they want to do and the use cases that are most relevant to them. So if you think about Airbnb, for example, not a B2B SaaS company, but you think about understanding their buyers, and it's basically about the experiences that one of their customers wants to have, going to Paris, eating croissants, speaking French, climbing the Eiffel Tower. It's not about booking a place to stay. And so when you are trying to understand your buyer, what you're trying to figure out is what is their aspirations? What does better look like? What does success look like to them? And then you talk to them, you talk back to them, like we can help you do this, right? And underpinning that is our technology enables that. But from the outside looking in, it's they don't care about you and your technology and your platform, whether you use AI. What they care about is themselves
Mhm.
and how it's going to help them be successful.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes it's about making more money. Sometimes it's about looking better. Sometimes it's about being healthier. But it's really about their needs. And so more than ever, and AI can't help you do this. More than ever, you just need customer intelligence.
Mhm.
I mean, AI tools can help you distill information, but I think that yeah, and it ties back to strategic planning because it's about you know simplistically it's about doing the right things in the right places at the right time, focus on the right people. So so as I said, it's being very strategic, uh, prioritizing what channels are going to move the needle, and then doing things that are going to resonate because you're talking to prospects in ways that show that you're empathetic or you truly understand what they want or need. You're not trying to push product, but you're trying to push as a solution. And that's hard for a lot of companies because, you know, especially B2B SaaS companies, they're very product centric. That's why they have big engineering teams so they can pump out features. But customers don't want features; they want things that help them do jobs, and that's always a challenge for, especially for companies that are led by engineers who see the world in ones and zeros.
That's that's a great point. I know, I mean, strategic planning for some people, this is like a scary word. It sounds like 15 people sitting on a boardroom and doing this like pages and pages of analysis, where in fact it is exactly what you said. Identify the channels and what moves the needle, what kind of problem you're solving, right? It's those basic building blocks, correct?
Yeah, I use there's a framework that I created, and it's about rating things from top to bottom. So what you'll do is you look at all the channels that are relevant to you. So a company could say, well, there's 15 channels that are relevant to me, and then you score them on how much does it cost in terms of money or people, um, how much effort would it take to actually make it happen, and what's the expected ROI. Very simplistic framework, but it helps you quickly determine what matters to you from a channel perspective and what doesn't. Of the 15 channels, five may matter. And of the five that will move the needle, you may only afford to be able to do two. But I think strategic planning, I think Michael Porter said it. It's all about understanding what not to do,
Hmm.
as opposed to about what to do. Because there's lots of things that you shouldn't do. You do because you think you have to, but you get to a better place when you can get to the point where you can dismiss channels because you know they're not going to have
Laser focus.
the impact. Yeah, and I think especially now, when venture capital is really tight, marketing budgets are getting squeezed, and that you really have to be laser focused. And if it means doing less but doing better, then that may be the way that you have to go. And then if you are going to rely on fewer channels, you better know those channels inside out, how to use them, and you better know the people that you're trying to target.
And I've seen companies niching down on niching down, that they're going into a niche and then they're creating another niche from that niche, right? Like this new company, after being sold for 240 million, they kind of broke it down into smaller companies. They only focus on Amazon resellers. That's it. That's the niche. But now within the Amazon resellers, they're niching down on only doing reselling through TikTok, for example. Like that's a niche of a niche. So I've seen more of this in terms of like to be able to one, find your ICP much quicker. And once you do find your ICP there, you can either dominate or then expand horizontally. Um, Also execute and align your brand positioning with, between your vision and the client's vision, and have the testing kind of done much quicker. So that's just something that I was discussing with a colleague of mine this week.
Yeah, but it is interesting because people look at niching down and they sometimes they see it as a negative because you're focused on a smaller and smaller audience theoretically. But the flip side of that is that when you know that niche really, really well and you understand exactly what their needs are, then you can be laser focused on serving that niche. And you can differentiate yourself from companies that are trying to serve multiple target audiences. So you can be seen as the expert for people
That's it.
who have these problems. And that's a great way of differentiating yourself. You can own that niche. Like you can totally dominate that niche as opposed to trying to compete against everybody and trying to position yourself against everybody in the marketplace. And if you look at the CRM marketplace, for example, I think in the US there are 1,600 CRM companies,
Mm,
maybe
a
probably
lot.
more,
Yeah.
but
There's one just got created right now.
yeah, probably right now. But there's ones that focus on plumbing companies. They're the CRM for plumbing companies, and
Yep.
they own that niche because they do everything that plumbers need, right? As opposed to HubSpot trying to get plumbers in the door, right? So that's another way you can position yourself.
I've spoken to somebody recently who is building a CRM for immigrant electricians. That's it. Because it has translation features and some things catered for people who don't speak native languages. Like this is how niche things are getting right now,
Could
which I'm
be,
I'm curious to see how where things are gonna
yeah,
unfold and and then
it's a great case study. Let me know how they do.
um yeah, yeah. CRM, another one.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So would you say that the old way and the modern way approach, I think you talked about the jobs to be done approach. Is that the new way of kind of buyer understanding?
It's one of them. There's lots of different frameworks out there. I would say that that traditional buyer personas, where you have hobbies and interests, and the ones that if you do a Google search for a buyer persona template, those things are pretty useless. Um, there's lots of things that like I don't care about what people's hobbies are when it comes to a buyer persona, especially if it's B2B SaaS. What I care about is how they do their jobs, what tools they use, what frustrates them, what keeps them awake at night, and then how I could position myself as the alternative,
Hmm.
as something they consider. So um, you can use lots of different templates, lots of different tools, lots of different canvases, but nothing beats talking to customers. Just as on a side note, I did a podcast with the head of marketing for Crisp.ai.
Hmm.
They're the noise cancellation company. And I asked them about their positioning and how they built community. And they said that the CEO and the COO they were doing customer success calls and customer
Hmm.
service calls.
Hmm.
And what he said is they learned firsthand about what their customers wanted, what their needs were, what kind of products they were looking to have. And again, it goes back to intelligence. The more you know, the more you can serve your customers and figure out what they want.
Yeah, and I think, if you're in your B2B SaaS, you probably need to have deeper conversations with individuals. But if you're doing like B2C products, e-com, usually the testing is slightly different. Like you can run small ad campaigns
Hmm.
with targeted kind of graphics that will also tell you the story, because you need to reach a wider audience to get to your ICP versus doing a B2B SaaS, let's say. So I think it's the same exact process. It's just done via a different method, you know?
Yeah,
One is hands-on interviewing and speaking, customer success stories versus just like hands-off automated ads of sort.
but but that actually, I push back on that because one of the best techniques for B2B SaaS companies, you come up with your new positioning, or you come up with an A/B test,
Mhm.
and you do Facebook advertising. So you just basically high volume advertising,
Mhm.
and then you build and you see what messaging lands and what
Mhm.
landing pages get the most traffic. It's a great way to test at scale. Or you can use Google ads or retargeting ads. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to, in the wild, you're basically trying to test your hypothesis, because brand positioning in many cases is a hypothesis despite all the work that you've done. And the only way to test it is to go out there and see what versions actually stick.
Got it. So maybe perhaps initially speak to the customers, and step two, take the hypothesis, test it at a wider scale with ads.
Yep. Yep. And that's a way to see if your if your thesis actually works.
Awesome. So taking the positioning, right? You figured it out. You know your brand, who you're serving, who's your ICP is. How do you get it down to your content, your email, your social media, kind of? I know it's easier said than done, but there's always a recipe, and some companies do it a lot better with a cohesive message across the board. What is your take on that?
So one of the values of a brand positioning document is it really sort of establishes who you're focused on, the benefits that you're delivering, the way that you're different, and being clear about what you do. So when you have those pillars, then you can write content, for example, that reflects your target audiences and what their needs are. Your website can be empathetic to the people that you're trying to attract. Your social media will be focused on the problems or the aspirations of your target audiences. Email marketing is about them and their needs, um, and not about you and your product. So it's a really effective way of telling sort of different um, narratives that are going to resonate. And I use that word a lot, but I think what I'm trying to say is that people need to subconsciously feel that you know them and you understand them. So like they get what you're trying to tell them, without
Connection.
it
Yeah.
without even thinking. Yeah, it's a connection of sorts. Think about when you go to a website and you look at the headlines and immediately you know that's me. That they're talking about me and my problems, and like it's just something that clicks. And I think it's content that, like, if you think of HubSpot, for example, maybe not now, but a few years ago, when they wrote content that was so useful and so interesting, because it made marketers feel like they were learning something new and interesting, and made them better marketers. And that was
Mhm.
HubSpot's whole theme, is from a brand positioning perspective, um, is to just being as a trusted resource, and be the CRM that helped you do marketing better. And their content reflected that as well, right? So yeah, it's sort of it's just a kind of a general strategic theme that you go to market with. There's lots of different ways to do it. You don't have to tell the same story in every single channel, but there's an underpinning story that you're trying to tell.
Everybody remembers a good teacher,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
You want to be a good teacher, and then they will not forget you, especially if you're constantly teaching and bringing something new to the table. And honestly, the reason why we do these events um, is just we want to share the knowledge that we learn. Like we constantly have to learn and evolve in the industry, and I'm like, I gotta pass this down to our customers and clients and people who follow us because I've gotten people who would send me messages and say, Richard, honestly, we attended this event in 2017 and you had this awesome guest who talk about launching your own digital marketing agency, and now I'm making, a six-figure income. I'm like, That's awesome." You know, you just need to influence one person at times to be a good teacher. But we fortunately live in a place where you can influence hundreds of people much quicker and much easier.
yeah. And I think, when you just taking it back to brand positioning, is that, when your story is consistent and clear, and you are repeating that story like day after day, week after week, month after month, eventually it starts to embed itself in the minds of the people that may be customers or may not be customers, but that you become like part of their sort of universe
Right.
because it's totally obvious about what you do and who you serve. And that's the power of brand positioning is that
Yeah.
over time it starts to sort of burn a hole in people's brains. And when they think about a problem, they think, well, that company solves that problem. And that's great brand positioning.
And something I learned, Mark, is a lot of brands struggle with coming up with content. They think they need to come up with something fresh and new and different every time. But it's okay to repeat the same thing 100 times, maybe slightly differently, but the same exact messaging, the same exact problem you're solving. It's okay. Don't feel like you're gonna bore people. It's actually the opposite. Eventually, people will remember you because every time they've looked at your content, you're talking about the same solution to the same problem that they might eventually have. So that's just a quick feedback I have for everybody. Um, I want to, the last point here, and I know we're coming top of the hour. I want to give 5 minutes for everybody if you have questions, but you talked about the LinkedIn strategy and the three C's. What are the three C's in LinkedIn?
So connections, obviously, comments. Well, there's connections, there's comments, there's content, and there's actually four C's, and there's conversations.
Okay.
Um, and we've read about connections in the equation. So, the connections are the vanity metric for LinkedIn, and everybody wants to have 500 plus on your profile. And connections, in some situations, connections are valuable because you connect with people that matter to you. But we all have lots of connections that are you know irrelevant, or some people we collected along the way. Content is very valuable. Established brand presence and thought leadership. Comments can be as powerful as content because for it content good comments stand out from a crowd, right? But I think the big thing is linking them all together with conversations. And I can tell you the business that I've generated over the year have come from conversations. Me reaching out to people who have connected with me and saying, I'd just love to jump on a call. I'd love to pick your brain. I'd love to compare notes. Um, you know, people
These
buy
are
from,
DMs, right?
huh?
DMs, like direct
Yeah,
messages.
yeah, DMs or even if people connect with you, then you can just yeah DMs. But people buy from people. People buy from people that they like and they trust and they know. And when you can have one conversation with somebody, and I learned this from my days as a reporter when I would talk to sources once, then you've got a connection that lasts a long time. And then that helps you outflank competitors who are just trying to cold email people or cold call people, right? So like you should be trying to talk to people all the time on LinkedIn and position yourself as just trying to learn, right? You're not trying to sell. Like selling on LinkedIn is a bad thing to do. It's
Mhm.
the worst thing you can do because no one wants to be sold to on LinkedIn. They want to talk to people and learn, but yeah, I'm a big believer in conversations.
So how do you invite people to a conversation without sounding like you are actually selling them?
So if I, let's say for example, you read one of my uh, LinkedIn posts, you left a comment, and
Mhm.
then you connected with me, and I looked at your profile, and you may be a prospect, maybe an interesting prospect, or just an interesting person. I would just say, hey, Richard, this is exactly what I do. Thanks for reaching out. I'm happy to connect. It looks like we operate in similar circles. It would be great to jump on a call and compare notes.
Mhm.
That's it.
Mhm.
Nothing about trying to sell you marketing services or trying to sell you to buy new or tell you about new. In a lot of cases, it's just because you never know. I could sell to you, but if I have a good conversation with you, then you could have people in your network that may need exactly what I'm selling, but I don't know that.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, what I want is I don't want you to say no. I just want you to come be thinking, yeah, I want to talk. I want to talk to Mark. Sounds like it could be a good use of my time. And conversations are 20 or 30 minutes. That's it, right? The ROI is always good, even if nothing comes of it. You learn something and you get some ideas, and then you move on.
So you suggest to put out an awesome piece of content on LinkedIn that talks about obviously the authority and the problem you're solving, and comes down from your brand positioning, right? We talked about getting the content distilled down in those 4-page documents, and those who engage with the content to actually reach out to them. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, you can. I mean, if people are commenting on your content and they're smart, then you make a connection request and you can say, "Hey, I really appreciate the comment.
Mhm.
Um, you offer some really great insight. It'd be great to jump on a call, right?" I mean, I think that not enough people actually take that approach, so
Right.
that when you do it, it comes across as authentic and engaging, and especially if you mean it. Because I think everybody's open to conversations. Everybody's open to meeting new people. I mean, we are social creatures. But if you position yourself as non-threatening, as non-salesy, then a lot of people just say yes, right? But it's always looking for opportunities. It's not just people who connect with you, it's people who leave comments, or it's people who left a really interesting comment in somebody else's post and you want to connect with them. There's lots of different excuses you can use to talk to people. But if you don't do it, then somebody else is going to. So why not, right?
Yeah, and some people also what they do is they take somebody else's piece of content on LinkedIn and they write a synthesis on it. Like I loved, what Mark Evans discussed on brand positioning during his VBOUT conversation and literally just mentioning and writing on their own, you're gonna get tagged, we're gonna get tagged, we're
Yeah.
probably gonna like it, and they're gonna create a connection. So I've seen people use that method extensively now. Even thought leaders are doing it because it just creates that, a little mesh, I would say, of thought leaders who are constantly sharing and reproducing content amongst each other.
Yeah, and LinkedIn is not about it's not a quantity game, right? I mean, it's hard to get engagement on LinkedIn these days. Yeah, the
The
algorithm is
noise, yeah,
it's really weird, and there's lots of noise and lots of content that's really crappy,
a
but
lot of sales.
a lot of sales going on. So, you can create content, make sure it's good content, leave good comments. But I think the real value and the real metric and let's be honest, LinkedIn is about either getting a job or attracting business. I
Yeah.
mean, and so the real metric is how many opportunities do you have? How many conversations do you have? And I think that opportunities come from conversations, for most of us. So that should be your metric. Like, forget about views and number of connections. It's about opportunities and conversations. And if that's a healthy metric, then I'm confident that business will flow.
The worst LinkedIn outreach that I've been getting is, "Hello, Richard. My colleague Jamie and I mentioned your name 3 times during lunch today. So here I am reaching out to you." I don't know
Yeah,
why my name gets mentioned in hundreds of emails and LinkedIn invites. It's definitely called the template that people are following. Um, but that just brings it to tell you want to stand out from the crowd, ditch the templates, and come up with your own approach, like Mark said, connect
just
with people, have a meaningful conversation. That's the only way to get results on LinkedIn these days.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. I think authenticity, whether it's in your outreach or whether it's in your content or marketing, I think authenticity is a very powerful thing these days.
yeah. Awesome. Mark, this was great content. I want to give the crowd and everybody who's with us if they have any questions. I know we've got some comments here and there. Um, Anyone have questions for Mark? And by the way, George, if you don't mind dropping Mark's LinkedIn profile in the chat for everybody. I know Mark will also include it in the email summary afterwards. So if somebody want to connect with you, they'll probably reach out through there. Um, but does anyone have any questions for Mark around branding and brand positioning?
Yeah, actually, we've got some feedback and questions. Marilyn said first, voice of customer is important to have in that conversation. Um, Suad said brand image and brand perception is very important to add to that too. Um,
Are these the YouTube comments?
no, no, they are the comments here to Zoom.
I got it. Okay, got it. Sorry, I have
Yeah,
two screens here, so I'm not.
No worries.
don't.
Somebody asked me what new is.
Yeah,
That's a really good question. So new serves B2B SaaS companies, and in simple terms, it's a pricing and billing engine. It used to be that SaaS was pretty simple. You had one size fits all, and you all bought the same product. And then companies got a little more sophisticated, and they sold the bronze, silver, gold package. And now the way that SaaS companies sell is based on API calls and licenses and seats and usage and lots of different variables, and it makes quoting and pricing increasingly more challenging and new, and makes it simple. It really makes it easy for sales reps to create quotes in minutes as opposed to hours or days. And our biggest competitor is Salesforce. Ironically, New sits on the Salesforce platform, so they're a friend and a foe at the same time. But it's right product at the right time. That's especially with AI powered products, and that's a whole level of complexity for companies selling those type of products.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. So, gentlemen, I don't see any more questions. I know we've had some reinforcing feedback from everyone, but it's 6:10, and I don't want to keep Mark for longer. He's been gracious enough with his time and expertise. Mark, thank you so much. This was a great conversation. And I want to thank everybody who joined us today, and especially also George for helping organize this whole thing. We will be resuming with an upcoming event next month, so stay tuned for the announcement. And if you want to get in touch with Mark, the LinkedIn is in the chat, and it will also be circulated via the email follow-up with everybody. Mark, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mark.
Have a great
Okay.
rest of the summer.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.